Hello, and welcome to a brand new video about the Ketron event. In this video, we're going to talk about the instructions and operating rules for the user real bass feature of the event. As we talked about in the previous video regarding the real chord, the general rules, mainly in terms of management, are roughly the same. But in the case of real bass, things are much simpler. So let's take a more detailed look. Unlike the real chord, in which we can have up to 13 different chords, in the case of the real bass, we have only 2 chords to work with, i.e. major and minor. In the world of MIDI programming and in the arrangers of other companies, there are usually 1 or 2 very different basic versions of MIDI bass in a style, and experience has shown that a lot of other companies, as well as professional style developers, use the same method and it works pretty much perfectly. And these basic versions are major and minor, so here as well, Ketron chose to use these too. But apart from the major and minor version in MIDI bass, there's also something that is particularly important. And this has to do with the inversion of the bass, or the bass inversion, and it is certain that this could not be covered by any of the 2 chords. So Ketron closes this gap here by coming up with something very clever. We record these so-called root versions, which in the event are used in 2 different ways. So what are they? Let's see them in more detail. Let's first explain what we mean by root version in real bass. So, the root version, in contrast to the 2 different chords, major and minor, where in each different chord the bassist player can play what he or she wants following the rules of the chord and all that, in the case of the root, it only plays the basic root note. That is, if for example we played a C major chord, typically it would analyze the notes that make up the C major, C, E, G. In the case of the root, however, it would remain strictly in the specific key, in this case being C, while maintaining the rhythmic pattern. This way, since there's only the basic note in each chord, we ensure the possibility of bass inversion, the lowest bass. There's also a second case in which root is used in real bass. This is the MIDI bass feature that was also in the previous Ketron models SD9, 90, and 60, where selecting root bass only plays the basic root note, automatically removing any musical resolution, major or minor, that may be programmed. Be careful though, this second case is not related to the bass version we described previously, but it has to do with the possibility of the real bass remaining only in the basic root note for each chord, while maintaining the rhythmic pattern and effectively bypassing any musical analysis of the chords. Let's hear an example of a basic chord analysis and a root chord. Conclusion. With the root bass groove loops, when we activate the bass inversion from the lowest switch, then if for example we were to play C major but choose the inverted chord, G, C, E, then the real bass will choose the 5th note, i.e. G, so the inversion is heard correctly. Next, when we activate the root switch, the real bass will only play the root notes that are present in the specific real bass we have selected. It is necessary here as well as with the real chord that the sharp be displayed in all chords because the system does not transpose on its own, so the WAV loops from the sharp must also be present. Of course, as we described above in real chord, if we don't want to re-record beats, we can audio transpose through a DAW, Cubase, Logic, Reaper, etc., or through an audio editor, Wavelab, SoundForge, and all that. Also, as with real chord, we have the option for bass chord sequences, which will have the role of intro and ending. In these files, we can include some sequence of orchestrated bass chords. However, I need to remind you that when there are intro and ending in preset or user real bass as well as preset or user real chord, then the system automatically places them in intro 3 and end 3. And in this case, as with the real chord, we can also have only 2 chord versions, and these would be major and minor wov loops. The sample rate should be 16-bit, 44 kHz in stereo or mono. Again, as with the real chord, the real bass folder we created should contain the name of the rhythmic pattern as well as the number of the original BPM tempo in which it had been recorded, for example, ballad_80. The process of copying to the event is the same, with the only difference being that we have to copy the folder with the user real bass we prepared to the user modeling/real bass. The following is a detailed chart with all the chord names being displayed. Thank you very much for watching! This has concluded another video about the Ketron event. If you want any more of these videos in the future, please consider subscribing to the channel and keeping up with everything regarding the event. Thank you very much for watching.